We begin tonight with new details on the dissolution of the State Fair Foundation. Leadership with the now defunct foundation said a failed real estate move by former board president Todd Berning ultimately led to its decision to dissolve. In a statement provided to your news leader today, the foundation says they formed an endowment fund in 2014. They say at Berning's recommendation, a portion of the funds were used to purchase real estate and set up a lease agreement to develop the new Minot Country Club. But the foundation says Berning signed a mortgage for a $2.5 million loan in the foundation's name without telling the other board members. The loan defaulted and the bank is now foreclosing. Now, the foundation added this in their statement. The actions of Todd Berning have irreparably harmed the foundation to such an extent that it no longer sees itself capable of fulfilling its intended purpose of supporting the North Dakota State Fair and its participants. Now, earlier this week, we told you that the Minot Area Community Foundation was assuming some of the responsibilities of acting as a pass-through for the State Fair for grants and scholarships. We reached out to the North Dakota Attorney General's office for comment on all this. We are also working to find out how this would impact the Minot Country Club moving forward. We'll update you as we learn more.